Each link. 7:41, let's talk politics with the leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, with us this morning. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Wamo. A pretty miserable morning, not made better by the loss by the Warriors in the grand final. I went along to the fan zone at Mount Smart there, and I think the fans, they were happy that we'd made the final. They thought that the boys had played pretty well, but just a couple of lapses, and you can't afford that in the grand final.
Do we put the loss down to John Key turning up to the final? Was that?
I'm sure he would have taken the credit if they'd won. So you know what it's like. If it goes well, they'll be there for the photo ops, and if it doesn't, that was very sad. But I had nothing to do with it.
Well, talking about credit, he's certainly not taking the credit for the double downgrade last week. In fact, he's blaming it on world market conditions. Yeah,
well, he can't just do that. The truth is, we were downgraded by two of the major rating agencies, both Standard & Poor's and Fitch, and both of them were unexpected. Really blindsided Bill English. And what Bill English and John Key had said before was that, their big focus was on avoiding credit rating downgrades. Bill English said that could add up to 1.5% to our home mortgage interest rates. John Key said it would add, between 1 and 2% to the cost of the money that the government was borrowing. That's $600 million a year. This is a reflection that there isn't confidence by the rating agencies that the government is doing the right things. They talked about growing debt. They talked about huge balance of payments problem will get worse in the coming years. And they talked about a poor savings record. Now, nothing the government is doing is addressing those problems.
John Key said after the 2011 budget, he said, Phil Goff might not like it, but Standard & Poor's does.
Yeah, well, obviously Standard & Poor's didn't like it any more than I liked it because they didn't think it had credibility. Look,
Big Phil Goff's just gone through a little dead patch there in the car. He may or may not come back. By the sounds of it, not coming back at the moment. What I might do is hang up on him and see if he calls back. Yeah, no, it was interesting that that's what John Key said at the 2011 budget, but Standard & Poor's are now saying that the lowering of the foreign debt from AA plus to AA and local currency from AAA to AA plus long-term ratings follows our assessment of the likelihood that New Zealand's external position will deteriorate further at a time when the country's fiscal settings have been weakened by earthquake-related spending pressures and fiscal stimulus to support growth. Just been saying what Standard & Poor's have been saying there, Phil.
Yeah. I think the government must have cut off my cell phone line in the middle of that.
Maybe.
Yeah. Look, there is a real problem. We're not saving enough. National hasn't invested any more money in the Cullen Fund. It stopped putting money in that Labor was putting in every year. And, of course, it's made cutbacks in KiwiSaver. Now, what we want is a strengthened and a wider KiwiSaver scheme, and that's what Labor will be focusing on in just a couple of weeks' time.
But I mean, how much of this though is due to external market conditions? I mean, we're a tiny fish in this big pond, and what way the world economy goes, we seem to go with it. So, what can we really do here?
Well, actually, the external conditions ought to be helping the government. We've got the highest prices for our commodity exports in 30, 40 years. Our dairy, our meat, etc. And thank God Labor negotiated the free trade agreement with China because China has kept us going and kept Australia going, and they're our two biggest markets. So, if anything, the external conditions have helped the government compared to many other countries. So, I don't think they've got that excuse either. What they need is a vision for the future. What they need is a plan. They've got to take some hard decisions that are good for the future rather than the soft decisions that will see them through to the 26th of November.
Is it not true, though, that some things that we've been doing for a wee while that have been nice are no longer sustainable, like interest-free loans on students?
Well, I think it's more than nice. I think it's a chance to ensure that everybody can get an education, can acquire the skills that they need without going through severe financial hardship in the process. National opposed student loans, they now say they're all in favour of them, but I wouldn't believe them. Come the election, if they were re-elected and they have a clear majority, they will that'll be one of the areas that they start cutting back on. It's a bit like before the last election. They weren't going to touch KiwiSaver. They weren't going to touch working for families. They weren't going to push GST up. You give them the majority, and they'll do all of those things. They'll be cutting student loans. They'll be cutting back working for families, and it'll be low and middle income people that suffer most, while the wealthy continue to be protected.
Of course, one of our big problems in New Zealand is our obsession with property and investment in property rather than productive businesses that are exporting overseas. Do you think now that with this downgrade, if National got back in, do you think that they are privately warming to a capital gains tax?
Well, they've been lukewarm in their attacks on it because, frankly, they know that there are only 3 countries in the world, the developed world, that don't have a capital gains tax, and that's Switzerland, a tax haven, Turkey, which is at the lowest level of the OECD, and ourselves. And, they know that they need a broader tax base. So we've got to pay for the earthquake in Christchurch. We've got to stop borrowing the levels that we're borrowing now. The capital gains tax enables us to do that. Won't hurt most New Zealanders, and those that it affects, it's only at 15%. It's fairer, and it also directs investment into the productive economy. For all of those reasons, you need the tax. They know that in their hearts, but they've committed themselves against it because it'll affect, of course, the most wealthy most, and those are the people that most strongly support National.
One thing that National has been doing over the past 3 years, of course, is cutting the public sector, and that is cutting jobs from the public sector. But interesting that a research poll, a Fairfax Media research poll this morning, polled 1,000 voters, and in all 5 categories that the voters were looking at, from 35 to 46% believe there was no difference in the quality of services now provided under National.
I think it's because it's a lagged effect. A lot of the people that they're cutting are people doing policy research, which informs the quality of government decision making. A lot of it is about long-term things, such as in the conservation estate, where they've been cutting back people that are expert in pest control, etc. You don't notice the effect of those cuts immediately, but you do over time. So it always falls on Labor to find that there's a rundown public service that's simply not doing its job. We saw that in areas like child, youth and family and probation when we got into government last time. You'll find a lagged effect, and it will affect the quality of what the government is doing and the services that it provides. Yeah, you've got to be lean, but don't be stupid about it. Don't start cutting back on customs officers, etc., and then wonder why you have another outbreak of some imported plant or animal disease. That will be the long-term consequence of the sort of cuts that this government is making.
Just got a tweet through from Hugh McCracken this morning, attempting to sum up what you've been saying this morning. He says, so that the strategy is that the electorate must get the message that a second-term National government will hit and hurt hard. Is that the message you've been trying to get across?
Oh, look, it's certainly a message that needs to be out there. It's one thing in the lead up to the election campaign, everything will be regarded as sweet. The credit rating downgrade's not a problem. National gets elected and it's got a clear majority. Then you'll see the flinty face of a National government, and that will be affecting people that are middle income and low income. You'll see more cuts in early childhood education and the sort of areas that they clearly don't value.
Flinty face, that's a new one on me. Haven't heard that one before. Flinty face.
Well, it's sort of opposed to the smiley face. The smiley face is, everything's okay, nothing's a problem, and she'll be right. And then suddenly we'll find the day after the election, if National's returned, suddenly, oh, well, we forgot to tell you this, and this, and by the way, this is now on our agenda. We saw it last time to a limited extent. We'll see it next time, if it happens, to a much greater extent.
All right, well, let's see if we can turn that Monday frown upside down. Phil, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Wemo. Catch up with you, mate. Bye.
Bye. Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff. It is now 10 minutes.